We're gonna have.
We have the Environmental Resources is doing their tire collection event this year, April 10th through the 12th. The big change this year is that no businesses will be allowed to drop off tires. And then we also have a video for Women's History Month. And that's all we have.
And Nicole, while you're there, are we on Zoom or not Zoom?
Zoom is on, but we're having troubles with the cameras.
Okay.
So we are working through it.
So Commissioner Weiss can hear, but she just can't see.
She should be, yes.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, Commissioners, a lot of appointments and a lot of consent, not a lot of new business. On the appointments, there's a list here. Item C is a board appointment to BCSA. It's an MABCD appointment. I think that is at large. Items D, E, F, G, H, and I are all intellectual development disabilities advisory board appointments by various commissioners. Item J is an MAPC appointment by Commissioner Blubaugh. Item K is a nuisance appeal board appointment by Commissioner Blubaugh. And then L and M are two food and farm council at large appointments by the body. Under new business, there's one zoning matter. Item N is the conditional use request for a private airstrip in the area of south side of West 39th Street South and on the east side of 391st Street West. Mr. Wadle is here if there's questions on that. And we are pulling item O. There was a conflict from the attorney, right, on the other side. So that's going to be rescheduled for the 2nd, right? Or the 9th? 9th. Okay, so you'll see that in a couple of weeks. Item P is a bring back from last meeting on a bid board issue, and I think Joe Thomas will present. I'm assuming Susan Erlenwine will be there also to talk about an acquisition for the household hazardous waste area. And then Q is our new bid board, and that's 3 items this time. It's and I think Lynn sent you an email on the telemetrics equipment for public works. That's item 1. We're buying a new ambulance. That's item 2. And Susan has put in for waste tire transportation services. That's item number 3 on bid board. In case there's any questions, staff could answer today on that. That was it for new business. There's a fairly lengthy consent listing today. We'll go through them quickly here. Item R is an easement for a bridge clean out between 47th and 55th Street South. That has a $1,500 fiscal note to it. Item S is another easement. This is a utility easement for the Wichita Biomedical Campus. As you recall, we own the facility immediately east of there, and they need to do some, and Andrew's here, you can talk to this too. They need to do some trench work on the parking lot area of the crisis center campus. The next 6 items, TUVWXY, are all capital improvement project amendments, and all of them head the direction north of increased costs. And these are all, Lynn's here too. These are all for project development. So, and I'll just read you the fiscal notes real quick. Item T has a $21,854 amendment, more increase. Item U has a $20,000 increase. Item V has a $12,500 increase. Item W has a $10,000 increase, and item X has a $50,000 increase. And then item Y, that's it. I'll hold off there. All of those, everything I just mentioned there are road and bridge changes. So to the point where we had a staff meeting, and Justin and Lynn can chime in here on the CIP amendments, where the prices are always seeming to go up. And there's protocol in place, staff has protocol in place with finance to where we'll make sure those are closely reviewed. And of course, you will see and hear them all, the commission will. So it was just a number of them at one shot, and we just handled them all at once. Item Y is another CIP amendment, and I'm going to have Andrew talk about this one just a bit. It has to do with the main courthouse structure. There's some work that has to be done there, and it's just an interesting project I want him to talk about briefly.
Thank you. Good morning, Andrew Dills, Director of Facilities. So the CIP amendment takes care of a couple maintenance items at the main courthouse. One of those is replacing a revolving door. It's the front entry to the courthouse. We have 3 revolving doors. One of them has parts that are obsolete. We cannot find replacement parts for this door. It's been down for a little while now. So this CIP amendment would replace one of those revolving doors. Our estimated budget's right around $65,000 for that door. Then the other component to this is a Liebert unit that is in records management. This unit it's an HVAC unit that provides heating, cooling, as well as humidity control. It's a similar type unit that we have in data centers. It's something that is specialized for the environment that it's serving, and it is also failed. Parts are obsolete on that component. Where the refrigerant is R22, which is no longer available, and so we'll replace that Liebert unit with a new one and upgrade the refrigerant to what's currently available, and that's right around $30,000 for the estimated budget of that one as well. And then we have some project contingency built into this in case we have any unknowns that we get into, and then any remaining funds that are left over after the project is complete will return to the CIP reserve.
Thanks, Andrew. Item Z is a construction easement, temporary construction easement for a shoulder widening on ridge between 69th and 85th. There's no fiscal note on that. Item AA, AB, AC, and AD are all contracts for professional engineering services for various projects that, again, Lynn can talk to if there's questions. The fiscal note on AA is $90,000. The fiscal note on AB is $200,000. For AC, the fiscal note is $75,000, and AD, the fiscal note is $252,000. I might have Lynn talk about item AE. That is a consideration of application for on the spring cost share program. Lynn, can you talk about that?
Yes. So previously, I met with each of you and discussed a project to add signalization on Oliver, just north of MacArthur, near the Spirit campus. And as part of that effort, we are also attempting to reduce those costs by going after a KDOT cost share grant. Those are being turned in here at the end of next week. And we're looking at covering about 70% of the cost of the project, hopefully if we can meet these requirements. We think we have a good shot with the project, meeting both economic as well as safety standards that particular grant really likes to see.
Yeah, I know you've briefed us on a couple of versions of this as it worked out. So this is the final, well, the next big step.
Yes, so this is the next step, and it is contingent. We have an agreement to move forward even if we don't receive the grant, and everyone is on board with that at this point. This is just something we agreed that we would try to do that makes sense, and I think it was one of the better options we had for selecting for this particular grant in the spring.
Thanks for looking into the grant.
Yes.
Questions? Okay.
That takes us down to item AF, which is an agreement with KDHE so that the health department can provide breast and cervical cancer screenings to income eligible women. Item AG, I want to maybe have Justin just talk just through. It's just the commission granting authority for some signature, but
Certainly. And this is something where I actually know that there was a booth set up over at the for the NCAA tournament about unclaimed property for the state treasurer's office. There are actually entries showing for Sedgwick County having unclaimed property with the state treasurer's office. Oftentimes it's Sedgwick County EMS, Sedgwick County Register of Deeds, various things there. To this point, the board hasn't ever authorized staff to be able to make those claims on behalf of the county. We thought it would be cleanest, and I did communicate some with the state treasurer's office to just have a simple resolution that would designate that the county manager, the CFO, or their designee would be able to, with this resolution, to be able to go ahead and make those claims for the county and get that money to the right funds and departments wherever they should go. Otherwise, there are a handful of those there currently if you just search Sedgwick County. So this would authorize staff to be able to do that. Happy to answer any questions on it.
Well, thank you. And we make reference to that unclaimed properties. I'm all for Sedgwick County to get that filed.
I might have Tim talk about AH, and while he's got the microphone, also I'll talk about AK, and then the rest of the meeting is just routine business. So Tim.
Commissioners, last year, KDHE granted the Department of Aging and Disabilities some funding to do pilot projects or studies related to crisis intervention services for the IDD population. And when we were awarded that grant, we didn't get our acceptance aligned with county budget cycle. So this is just to extend the budget authority through the remainder of the year so that we can spend the money. It's just a technical adjustment that we're making. The award's been granted, we had accepted it, and we're working on that. And in fact, on April 8th, we've got folks from the START Institute from the University of New Hampshire that will be at a BOCC staff meeting to kind of talk about what they found in their survey, community survey. So that's what that's related to. And then item AK is a staffing table adjustment. The aging ADRC environment is in transition, and so we have some positions that will go away as the state has awarded that contract to a different entity. So we've got some positions that will go away that were grant funded, so our policy requires those to go away. But we have additional separate grant funding that will allow us to perform some of that work that's still necessary. So this is to add a position back to replace those 4 positions that we'll be eliminating. And we've got grant funding available to pay for these positions in the work.
Okay. Rest of the regular agenda is routine business. We do have a short fire agenda, and Chief Crisp is here today from the fire district. It's a consideration of minutes. And also 2 consent items. One is to accept and acknowledge an employer incentive payment from Hutch Community College regarding a grant in the amount of $4,500, and then a FEMA Type 1 Kansas State Fire Marshal MOU. And I don't, if there's questions on that, the chief is here to talk about that. And that is all we had on fire agenda.
questions regarding the fire agenda? So thank you, Chief, for being here.
You may want to go back to the regular agenda for a couple
Yeah.
of questions.
Okay. All right. Mr. Allen.
Just trying to catch up on the bid board. So there's some cameras for Public Works. Is this a replacement set of cameras? Are these new or what's?
Are you talking about the Telemax? So that's there is no replacement. That's a continued service contract we've had since 2022, and this is a renewal of that contract for another year.
Okay. And the ambulance, is this a addition to our fleet or is this replacing a?
Yes, this is Chief Lannerman came in and talked to you here
That's-
recently.
that's the new one,
This is,
okay.
yeah, this is an addition to fleet
Okay.
out of the equipment or EMS equipment fund.
And then the waste tire is, what's the source of these tires? Is this our tire roundup event?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
So we collect these tires and this is the contract to actually dispose of the tires we collect.
Yeah, dispose of, recycle. There's about 4 or 5 different things that they can do with the tires to try to keep them out of the landfills.
That's with our third party vendor.
Yes.
That does it.
And I guess
That's what we've done in the past, I think.
Sure. And then on just on item Z on the construction easement, I'm just curious. Is this this, well, I guess my questions is, this is pretty far from, I don't know what the traffic count is on that road. I'm just curious if this is a kind of a standard configuration. We're trying to implement this type of configuration on roads throughout the county. Why was this road selected versus other roads that may be very similar?
This is actually 2 different projects. We have one that's under construction now on Ridge Road between 53rd Street North and the Ark River. This takes the second phases for the Ark River up to 85th Street. And yes, this is exactly it. This is our first project where we're simply redoing the ditches, make them a little safer and adding a wider ditch or a wider shoulder onto it. These are the first 2 projects. This area was selected because it has a lot of truck traffic. Sand pits are up in that location. So the traffic and in particular the type of traffic up there is what made this our first choice for this type of a project.
And are there other CIP projects do similar type of work on other county roads?
We don't have them yet, but we have them planned. Yes.
Okay, and then I guess I just wanted to highlight, item P. I'll just I did have a pretty good briefing with staff on that item. So I want to make sure everyone else has had a chance to have the questions answered. I think it's going to be some pretty interesting discussion at the meeting. So I don't want to get into it right now, but I just want to say, I think there's a lot of things we need to talk about on item P. So. All right.
Yeah, it was discussed with all commissioners.
All right. Thank you so much. Good.
And if I could talk on the regular agenda, thank you for describing items T through X. And I think it's no secret that the cost overruns are happening. And it might be in the documentation, but it might be helpful if we said like item T, the original bid was 150,000 and it's 21,000.
It is in the backup.
Is
What
it?
the original bids were.
Yeah, we do have that, but I will note that these are proposals, not bids, and they're for the engineering. So we had a budget set.
Okay.
They just think all of the proposals exceeded our budget.
That's right. They are proposals for the engineering. Are they all different companies too? Or same?
Yes, I think we have one project that is or 2 projects that went to a single consultant, but we do try to spread the work around.
It's not one company.
Right, no, that
cost
is not.
overrun is for rebidding is this.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for looking into that. And I'm sure it was eye-opening when you received that information. And so thanks if you're working.
Yes, it was some of the bids in particular were quite eye-opening for what we're used to paying in the last couple of years.
Nick, go ahead.
What is the best practice for this where we have, our architects give us an estimate and then we go out for bid and I mean, how do we make sure we're as close as possible to that because, you know, we really don't hold the architect to that because they're not the ones submitting the bid.
Correct. Well, actually, this is this is to hire the engineering consultant. So we have come up internally with those cost estimates to get the engineering consultant on board who can then design the project and give us estimates for the construction of that project. So this is the very first phase of projects that will be constructed in the next 2 to 3 years, probably. So what we do is we reach out to the local consultants here and ask them all to submit proposals on projects they are interested in. Typically, we get anywhere from 2 to 6 responses, depending on where the location of the project is, how big the project is. And then from there, we evaluate them and make recommendations.
That is a really good question, though, Commissioner. And I think that particularly in the environment we're in economically right now, that this is going to continue to be an issue. Like I said, we had a staff vetting of this. I think we might bring that to a commission staff meeting just to talk above the table. But I want Lindsay here and some other folks here and Joe Thomas to talk about that. But it is going to be something that we'll have to watch going into the future on just the prices are going up so fast, literally in the middle of the stream, that the people need to be aware of what's going on. So we'll staff that again right here at the 1st of April.
You have any legislative updates?
Sure. Yes, Commissioner Meister, I'll try to summarize a few of the non-tax bills and I'll ask Tom Henry to opine on some of the tax specific bills. And I know Tanya's reached out to commissioners, but I want to let you know the House Bill 2331, the cremains bill, that is headed towards, I believe, towards conference committee, and Jason Watkins said that one looks pretty promising. There don't appear to be anything that's going to hold that up as far as we've heard. The next one I'd mention is the elections bill, House Bill 2022, went at general orders in the Senate. And as far as I know, I think that's, again, proceeding the way that we would hope that it would. That was the one where our bill got amended into a prior elections bill or separate elections bill.
I think they make an adjustment or two on that election.
Yeah, actually, to clarify on that a bit, I should, on the school bond, or not just school bond, but on bond elections, they did make an amendment to where that would only be during primary or general elections.
Okay.
So I believe there may be other elections that would be able to happen in March, but not a bond election based on that amendment,
Okay.
is my understanding.
But as of now, they're saying 3 elections a year.
That's
Spring,
yes.
Primary, general.
That's correct, Commissioner. So yes, I think the intent of the board on your legislative platform item is still being carried forward with that. Another bill that I know the commission's been interested in is Senate Bill 119. That's the treasurer's fee bills in terms of the tag office. That was on general orders in the Senate on Tuesday, I believe. Again, I think that one is also proceeding the way that we would hope. I haven't heard anything to the contrary on that. I think there was a hearing. Well, I think it went to general orders in the Senate. Yeah, Tuesday, and I think it had a hearing at the House, if I remember correctly, as well. So I think there were some questions raised at that hearing, but I also think that it's proceeding. The juvenile corrections bill, HB 2329, is, from what I understand, I think that's maybe hit some snags in the Senate. I know Jason was talking to some folks. I defer to any comments Commissioner Howell may have on that too, but that's my understanding.
I talked to our lobbyist yesterday. We need to reach out. In fact, I was working on an email just this morning. I haven't got it out yet, but we need to talk to our corrections and our DA and our sheriff and all of our agencies that touch this issue of juvenile corrections and juvenile justice, and ask them for points of contact in Johnson County specifically. I don't have those names. I don't have those phone numbers, but I can tell you that the problem in the Senate is to get the senators that have the cards in their hand to go forward. They're going to have to hear from the folks in their part of the state. So I need us to work together to find people in Johnson County that can speak to that bill as proponents to get that move forward. That's the problem right now.
And Commissioner, how you're thinking probably their district attorney in Johnson County,
Exactly.
their
Our counterparts up in Johnson County. So again, if you know
Corrections.
counterparts, I need to know, need to reach out to them and get them to understand we have 3 weeks left, guys. And this bill, this bill is conferenceable because it did pass out of one body. But it may not have time to go to a Senate hearing. It may not, the normal process, we're just almost too late to get that done this year. But I don't think the bill's dead. I think we have options, but we've got to get we need it. We need to get the Northeast senators to engage. And right now, I don't think they understand the value of this bill. So I don't think we've lost interest in this at all. I think we're very interested in seeing this move forward. If you ask any of our folks to deal with these topics, they'll tell you this still is a very, very good bill and we need to get it moving forward. I don't really know what the hang up is, other than the fact I don't think they feel like they have as big of a problem up there. So.
And I'd look to other commissioners or Tom, but in terms of outreach, I mean, it would be consistent with the board's prior opinion on this bill. So, I mean, as long as the board's okay with that, I think that's something that staff could do, but.
Okay. So Tom, can you help us I was going to send that letter out, but if you can help all of our county staff that are touching that bill to, provide some help to get the right people. That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Meister, the last bill I was going to summarize just briefly, because this one's kind of more our tax bill. I'll let Tom Henry speak to some of the House and Senate proposals and other tax issues, but on be House Bill 2377 on the sales tax, essentially where we're asking to freeze it for a year and have further discussions. That passed the Senate 24-16. From what I understand, that will, go to the House floor in the near future. I don't think Jason knew exactly when that's going to happen. It may not be known yet, but it did get enough of a vote to pass at the Senate. That's obviously less than a veto-proof majority, but I also don't imagine, at least off the cuff, I would be surprised this would be the kind of thing that would be likely to lead to a veto, because it's just freezing that. But that seems to be moving forward. And at this point, if Tom's available to talk, I think he can talk about it, the House and Senate bills on taxes that are pretty high-profile items.
Good morning, Thomas Henry, Assistant County Counselor, and it's looking like the House took the bill that Justin was just discussing up yesterday and it passed out of the House as well. If this website is to be believed. There was a bill that was referred to the House Tax Committee that didn't go anywhere, that was going to exempt all commercial and industrial machinery. This was something that Mark Clark had brought to Tanya's attention. It hasn't gone anywhere. So at this point, I don't think that that's a concern for this year, but what it would do is it would extend that exemption for what we call CIME to all CIME. Right now, it's just an exemption for everything. I think it's like January of 2006 forward, which would result in a shift from personal property tax carrying some of the tax burden to residential and commercial properties, real estate. That did not go anywhere, at least this year. Then the other bills I want to touch on, you've essentially got dueling bills between the Senate and the House. One's on a property tax lid and the other's on a cap for growth and appraised value. You've got House Bill 2396, which is the bill that we had sent up some testimony on. I generally approved of the concept of it, and there were a couple of changes. This is the one that we wanted to make some changes for the bond based on bond counsel's recommendation, as well as a couple other minor things. So that passed out of the House, no problem. The Senate then came in and gutted it, and essentially they got rid of the ASTRA funding, which was a funding to local municipalities that stayed within a certain limit of growth. It got rid of the House version of the bill, got rid of R&R. The Senate version then kept that in. And essentially the Senate bill now, all it is it's a cap based on the lesser of 3% or CPI inflation. And if you exceed that, then it goes out to the public has a chance to come and do protest petitions. And once it meets a certain threshold, then our budget would be brought down to whatever that cap was.
They changed that to an election also.
Did they change it to an election?
Yeah, so they took out the protest petition and moved it back to an election.
Oh, I missed that part of it. Okay.
Can you clarify that?
So the House version of the bill to protest if we exceeded inflation on the House version of the bill, there's a protest petition and it had to, if you have a protest of, I think it was 10% of the electors in the last presidential election, then that immediately reverted the bill or that back to the cap. You couldn't exceed the cap. So you'd essentially have two bills. And they could protest it now.
The end of that as well, that protest petition has never been done anywhere in the country, but it's a
Yeah.
novel idea. The citizens of, or should I say, the electors of Sedgwick County would have 30 days to garner 10% of that number that were registered or should say, voted in the last presidential election. So doing the math, it's about a little more than 21,000 signatures would have to be collected. I also did testify on that bill. I recommended they would change it to the election officer, which they did not do. They ignored that point. They ignored the issues of bond, geo bonds. They also ignored the issue of I actually asked them to reconsider the formula. Well, they asked for fund, they just deleted it anyway, so it didn't matter anyway. So they ignore basically our entire testimony, and they just, and again, a 3% cap. The original bill was a CPI cap that was allowed. So CPI, if it was more than 3%, would have been allowed under the previous bill, but they went 3% or CPI, whichever's less.
Yes.
And they moved it back to election. So the election, again, requires notification. It requires the equipment to be deployed. It's a full up election, if you will,
Yeah.
which is it's a time problem. And they recognize there's a challenge with the schedule. It doesn't fit the tax and budget schedule doesn't really afford a real opportunity for a real election, which is one of the problems with the tax lids that require an election. So the protest petition was trying to get around that by doing this 30-day window. And I actually argued it's very doable. 21,000, again, do the math, is 10% of the people who voted in that election. It's actually only 4% of the county's population. And you have 30 days to get that. You can do that a myriad of different ways to get those signatures. So to me, that was a very good novel idea, but they just rejected it outright. They also did insert in that bill, their R&R requirements were also added back in.
Yeah, so they had some changes to R&R that the Senate is going to make.
So consequently, for 2396, in my opinion, is an absolute disaster at this point. I would say has no value. But the good news is what happened to Senate Bill 35 yesterday. Are you going to talk about 35?
I'm not aware of what happened with Senate Bill 35.
Okay, so on Senate Bill 35, it was amended yesterday on the floor, and they basically did those recommended. I don't think they touched the GO bonds, but they did talk about the election officer. It was a gut and go. Senate Bill 35 was a bill in the Senate that was going to remove the 1.5 mils for state office buildings and educational buildings. It was going to delete that and refund that through other sources of revenue. They did a gut and go on the floor, and they inserted, if you will, the contents of 2396. But in doing that, they also made some improvements. They did the election officer versus the county clerk. They also did go back to a protest petition with additional notification requirements, R&R type like notifications with a postcard, but so it's a little bit more transparent in that regard if you think of it that way. But it does a CPI or CPI threshold, allows that growth up to the CPI. So it doesn't have that other language about, or it's not capped. It's just it's capped at a CPI number. I think there's a couple of other changes. My point is that we do have a bill. It's Senate Bill 35 now. It basically has, I think the better version of 2396, the improved version of 2396 is now in Senate Bill 35.
Well, and I think with this and with the assessment lids from either the House and the Senate, these are going to conference committee, and we'll see what comes out of the negotiation.
Oh, they also made a change. I talked to the tax chair. He made a change in the bill so that the distribution of the ASTRA funds, which is now back in this bill again, Senate Bill 35, but now it's based on assessed value, not mill levy. So there's no incentive to keep your mill levy high to get more funds from the ASTRA fund. So they moved that back to assessed value per our request. That came from Sedgwick County, by the way. So very proud of that. Yes.
And Commissioner Howe, I was going to ask, do you know on Senate Bill 35, did they address our bond concerns?
They do not. And I
Okay.
think the reason is, I think there's a fundamental disagreement. I see the point. I think there's a great concern by local government on the geo bonds. But I think the tax chair feels like this is a bit of a loophole that allows us to simply spend more by using geo debt and kind of get around the intent of the CPI based tax lid. So I don't know that they're going to support that. I'll say this, I would concede to their point. If that's the only thing we don't get, I think there's opportunities to deal with that in the future. And I think the worst thing that would happen to us would be an impact on our credit rating, which again, I know is a big deal, but I think there's worse things that can happen here. So.
And then to the assessed value lids, essentially you've got the house's version of it is a rolling undetermined number of year average of the actual increases for, is it, I think it's just residential. I don't know if that has changed to anything
So
else.
5011, HCR 5011 was, the Senate did a gut and go on that. They wiped the contents and inserted 1603 back in. So the House has the version they passed out, which is conferenceable technically, but
yeah,
it's not going to go anywhere. Honestly, the Senate's not going to touch that one.
And that's kind of why I indicated that these are going to conference, because you've got dueling ideas in the House and Senate. So we'll see if they can come to an agreement on the terms of those.
And to be clear, there's only 3 weeks left of the session. So
yeah. So yeah.
Tom, thanks for paying attention, Justin, and thank you, Commissioner Howell, for eyes on the floor for us. Questions on legislative?
I just want to take a chance to make sure that the public knew that tomorrow at the West Central Health Clinic, we'll have a measles measles vaccine opportunity for folks. It's creeping closer and closer to us. So we just want to make sure people are aware of that. Thanks.
So the vaccination will be eligible tomorrow, but even ongoing. So maybe we point that out in our commission meeting if it's approaching. The other thing that we have, of course, we've got the basketball tournament going on. Huge crowd all day yesterday out there, inside, sold out, outside. Very, very busy, very festive all the way around. And I would just want to do a shout out for our state treasurer, Stephen Johnson. He had called a week or so ago, made communication with a few of us that they were going to set up a tent for unclaimed property at the state. And he works closely with our county treasurer, Brandy Bailey. And we connected our comms department with theirs, and they had a fantastic booth there that I think a lot of people a lot of peers that I was around were saying, you know, what is that? And they were encouraged to go by. And then I knew of a half a dozen people came back and said, hey, I had $100, I had 200, you know, whatever. So, what is it? Good Morning America was there to do a lot of filming of it and all that. And our commissioner, Mr. Bluebaugh, I mean, I'm not revealing anything that's confidential because he went up there and checked his name and hit the jackpot for the day. But anyway, Stephen has done a great job in working with Brandy Bailey on getting that money out back to the public. So thank you, Stephen, and thank you for that booth. It's very supportive, and I'll let Mr. Booth.
Yeah, I do want to do a little shout out because we've been through this before. A lot of times it's insurance proceeds or something. And it is the public's money. It needs to be returned to them. And I want to give our treasurer credit because he's making it easier. You know, the first couple of times got sent in marriage licenses and all kinds of documentation. I think they're making it a lot easier for folks. So please check that out.
Okay. Anything else?
Jeff,
Yes, Jeff. Oh, that's right. Are you buying lunch today? Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing Meals on Wheels. Come along.
Oh, no. I didn't mean that.
Okay. And with that, everybody have a safe weekend and enjoy the tournament and be proud of our Wichita Sedgwick County area, our interest arena. Congrats to the interest staff for I understand there was a little hiccup with Wi-Fi at the beginning of one of the games, but that got solved right away. And so anyway, good job to AJ and the staff, and good luck with tomorrow's events as well on the games. All right. Have a good weekend, everybody.